Hi, welcome to Casting a Wider Net, Adjusting Ancient Leadership for the Non-Matriculated Participant. Let me begin by saying this is the first time Sunoiksis has ever offered a course like this, open to the public. So this was experimental and we still have a lot to learn. I wanted to take this opportunity with this conference to workshop some of the problems that I came across as a tutor. The tutorials would include one weekly session with a professor and up to 5 participants for an hour long to discuss the material from the modules for that week. Then they would have access to and could be included in these common sessions that would take 1 hour, again once a week, but they included the matriculated students and professors from other colleges and universities. I want to first look at the successes and then move on to discuss the problems more in depth. There are 3 areas of the course that were particularly successful. The first is access to materials. All the materials are on the course site. The texts are grouped into modules that direct the reader through the material with notes and questions that are linked to the text, and this is particularly helpful for self-directed study. Group engagement. Group dynamics are difficult to manage at times, but I found that keeping the groups fluid worked well. For example, I had one group where everyone was engaged and participating, and another group with only one person who is consistently participating and able to get the reading done. I moved him to the previous group and he was much happier. The less engaged group rarely met, but this didn't seem to be an issue for them. Relating the text to modern life, we talked a lot about the election and the types of leaders that emerged from the primaries in the 2016 election, as the course was going on at the same time. So for example, in the module called Political Thriller about Cicero and Catiline, we talked a lot about perception and politics and sources. We talked about Trump as Cicero and that they were both masters of PR and casting themselves as victims, and Hillary as Catiline, who has several scandals that has marred her reputation, much like Catiline. Although there was a lot in the tutorials to celebrate as achievements, there's always room for improvement, so let's move on to examine the areas for improvement. I have identified 3 areas for improvement for this course for non-matriculated students. The first is the structure of assignments. The original assignments were developed for matriculated students, and often this was too much for non-matriculated students who do not have as much time for their studies. The lack of technical proficiency in the common sessions and in group meetings was a constant complaint from the non-matriculated participants. This sets an unprofessional tone, which the tutorial participants seem to be particularly sensitive to as they are used to a more professional environment. Engagement through the Slack application was specifically difficult for the tutorial participants. The program was unfamiliar and difficult for them to navigate. Let's look a little more closely at the structure of assignments. The main problems were there was too much reading. There were different amounts of reading accomplished by different participants in the same cohort. They were looking for more focused discussion in the tutorials, and what was read, or what they were able to read, was not discussed in the common session. Some potential solutions I have identified are tiered assignments of the reading, having different participants report on different texts, and close readings of a portion of the text. Many of the problems with the structure of assignments, I think, could be remedied through narrowed assignments. This could be done more effectively if outlines of the common sessions were available before the assignments had to be listed. Let's take a look at an example of one of the original assignments for one of the modules, and then the modified assignment that I proposed for the non-matriculated students. On the left, you can see the original assignment for the module, I Know What Boys Like. First is a quiz on implicit bias. This is a quiz that you can take online to see if you have a particular gender bias. Then there is the main portion of the module, Discovering Gendered Leadership, which is 3 selections of Plutarch's Life of Antony, ending in a possible group activity where you list the traits of particular characters in these selections and determine the gender of these traits. Then there's an article in the 2016 election about quote-unquote playing the gender card. And finally, there's a reflection on whether or not we can ungender leadership. On the right-hand side, you can see the tiered assignments as I've restructured them. At a bare minimum, they should read some Plutarch. So I chose the selection from the Life of Antony about Octavian, Antony, and Cleopatra, because it was the most frequently discussed in the common session and probably the most interesting of the 3 selections. I mean, who doesn't love Antony and Cleopatra and the ensuing drama? Then I suggested the quiz on implicit bias. I found this to be particularly helpful in thinking about how my own bias colored my reading of the text. Then I suggested the group activity of listing the traits of Antony, Octavian, and Cleopatra, restricting it to the main characters of that first selection from the Life of Antony, and determining the gender of the trait. This was a particularly useful activity that I did do in the tutorial for this module. Then I suggested the Life of Antony with the Civil War and the Second Triumvirate, followed by Antony in the East. Finally, I thought we could ponder the question about can we ungender leadership, and this could be something that can be carried out in the tutorial itself. Finally, the article on the 2016 election and playing the gender card. The tiered assignments are narrowed assignments. They are listed in order of importance for what they need to understand the topics in the module and what is discussed in the common sessions. I would encourage you all to go to the website and pick a module and create your own tiered assignments for us to discuss. These are some of the comments made by participants in an anonymous survey about the course. I particularly like some of the ideas in the second comment, but I think this would be better accomplished through a Slack chat. I'll talk more about this later. Let's move on to talk about a lack of technical proficiency in the common sessions and in the group tutorials. Let me begin by saying that I too experienced some of these technical difficulties. Sometimes it was from the software in Google Hangouts, sometimes it was from a lack of practice on my part. Expecting instructors to play around on unfamiliar technology is akin to expecting students to master unfamiliar material without any setup or basic instruction. It's highly unlikely to happen. So now let's look at some of the problems that we encountered with the technology during this course. The most prevalent technical problems that we had in the common sessions and tutorial groups were a loss of sound, echoing, inability to hear other students' comments. When they are all sitting around one computer, we tend to only be able to hear the one sitting in front of the computer. Students and instructors not having their presentations ready, an inability to navigate Google Hangouts, and handling glitches with Google, which are bound to happen with even the best presenters. During the planning session before the course begins in the summer, there should be an hour at least devoted to navigating Google Hangouts, Slack, and the course site. Also, practice sessions have been very helpful for me personally when presenting. So before a presenter is scheduled to present, there should be a practice presentation scheduled with the moderator, especially when they're using new tech or if this is their first time presenting. I think also a list of common problems and solutions would be helpful. I invite you all to look at the handout that I am currently working on in Google Docs and to contribute your own suggestions. We have also learned that Google Hangouts on Air, which is used to live stream the common sessions, will not be available after September of this year. We may need to move toward a different application for the common sessions, such as Skype or Appear-In. Here are some participant observations from their anonymous surveys taken at the end of the course. You can see that technical challenges and technical proficiency was important to them in feeling that they were engaging with professionals. Finally, let's turn to engagement with the Slack application. Slack is an app that was used to have consistent engagement with all of the students throughout the week. Slack is an application that is used for chat back and forth. You can post longer documents, you can post larger portions of text, you can post videos, links to websites, and students can comment back and forth on them. Some of the participants in the tutorials did not find the Slack easy to navigate. While I believe it is the easiest of these types of apps to work with, it does require a short tutorial. Due to the quick start of the tutorials in the fall, we didn't have time for a pre-course meeting. Normally in a pre-course meeting, we would introduce all of the technology, and this is what we will do in the future, especially making sure to include time to discuss Slack and how to navigate it through all the different channels. Each module had 2 channels, one that would have consistent chat throughout the week, and another that was specifically for the common session. Let's take a look at some of the problems specifically that the participants had with Slack. As I just mentioned, the main problems with Slack were the app or website was confusing and difficult to navigate. We saw less and less interaction through Slack as the course went on, and that there were different levels of engagement with the text between the matriculated students who were reading more and the non-matriculated students who were generally reading less. Some of these solutions, one of which I've already mentioned, is what we call a zero common session to introduce Slack among other aspects of the course. This is a pre-course meeting. Also, I believe a separate channel for each cohort where they can discuss their own pared down assignments instead of perhaps feeling intimidated by students who have read more than they have. Here I have picked 3 weeks and modules to look at the participation on Slack. The numbers in the parentheses are the number of people who joined the Slack, so they may not be commenting, but they have joined and perhaps are reading it. The numbers in the 3 right-hand columns are the number of people who commented. You can see a decline in the number of students around the middle of the semester, but the participants are pretty steady in their low numbers throughout the semester. So, You Can Go Your Own Way was our first module. Throughout the week, 65 members, 5 professors commented, 3 students, and 4 participants. During the common session, we had 62 people join that channel. We had 5 professors comment, 14 students comment, and 2 participants comment. Then midway through the semester, in the Born to Run module, we had a significant drop in people signing on to the channel, or joining in, as it's called. We've gone down from 65 to 36 for during the week, and from 62 for the common session, we've gone down to 29. Here we still have a good number of professors for commenting during the week and during the common session. No students commented during the week, but 5 commented during the common session, and only 2 participants commenting during the week and the common session. Finally, our last week of the course, we had 2 modules in 1 week. We had I'm Every Woman and Getting to Know You. The number of participants hasn't gone down too much, or members hasn't gone down too much since the middle of the semester, and the professors yet again are still holding strong. Students have dropped again from 1 during the week and then 2 on the common session, and no participants during the week and only 1 during the common session. As you can see from the comment from the participant from the survey at the end of the course, that navigating Slack was a problem for this participant, but still, most of those who responded to the survey indicated that they read the chats, but they were not big commenters. I think that a separate channel for them would allow them to feel more comfortable with people they know and with participants who are reading the same amount as they are and the same topics as they are. The two consistent commenters on Slack were the two participants who usually read the most, if not all of the materials. Allowing non-matriculated students their own Slack channels and groups would enable them to post their own specific, more focused observations about their pared down tiered assignments. This would also help foster connections within their own small groups and other participants outside of their groups as well. I'm excited to hear feedback on these ideas, and I hope that we can work together to make this an even more successful experience for the participants in the future. Thank you.